AI, in the travel, here we go. Got that AI on the low, taking flights to and fro, booking trips in a snap with a simple chatbot flow. AI, revolutionizing how we roll. Gonna hop on a plane, feeling so.
Welcome to another episode of the Everything AI in Travel podcast, where we hear from the makers, shapers, and buyers of AI technology in the travel space. Here's your host, Tony Khan.
Hey everyone. Now, before we get started with today's show, I've got a very special guest with me who's got an event coming up later in the year that I think you should consider attending. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bruce Rassard from Arrival. How are you going?
Hey, thanks, Tony. Really appreciate the time. So Arrival, for those who aren't familiar with us, focuses on destination experiences, what you do when you get there on vacation. We all know that people don't go on trips to stay in a hotel or fly. They go to have fun when they get to destination. So that's what Arrival is all about. At our conference this year in Washington, D.C., September 29 to October 3rd, we actually have three different elements. First, we have our executive summit for the C-suite. Then the second day is our AI forum for destination experiences. It's the first of its kind. It's never happened. And we've got a great group of speakers that are going to be there to talk about the intermediate up to expert level of what people know about AI, not designed for beginners. We will have some sessions at Arrival 360, which follows the AI forum for more introductory AI.
Sounds really great, Bruce. Now, what can people expect to take away or learn from going to the AI specific part of the conference?
You know, at the AI conference, Tony, we're going to have high-level strategic discussions on our main stage, everything from agents and what's happening with that, the impact of AI on search and discovery, what you need to know from a regulatory and privacy perspective. That'll be on the main stage and more sessions like that. Some investors will be there sharing their perspective. And then we'll have breakout sessions where we're going to go deep again into search and discovery because we know how important that is. Agents, working with agents, and roll up your sleeves, bring your laptop, hour and a half long sessions on the tools. You know, we know what tools everyone's using today. By the time the event runs around in September, it'll be different. And we'll have roundtables with discussions for practical information. Here's some tools you need to start using today. By tomorrow, you can start using them.
Sounds super fantastic. I'm definitely going to be there. Where can people find out some more information?
Just go to arrival.travel and navigate your way to our Washington event. And you'll see subtitles for our executive summit and our AI forum and the rest of the conference that's going on that first week of October in DC.
Perfect. Now, there's a special offer for listeners of the Everything AI and Travel podcast, and you'll find that in the show notes. So if that sounded like something that you would like to attend, and I think you should, then go down to those show notes and grab that special offer, find out more about the conference and book yourself a ticket. Thanks for joining us today, Bruce.
Yeah, one last thing. It's Arrival with one R. For those of you listening, arrival.travel.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us, Bruce. And now on with the show. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another Everything AI in Travel podcast. And today we're going to continue our journey looking into the hotel industry specifically. It's something that people have reached out to me and said, hey, Tony, what about hotels? They're part of travel too. And so I've made a bit of an effort to get out there and find some of the voices that are saying more interesting things about AI and travel. And today I've got definitely one of those. Welcome to the show, Jason Cincotta. How are you going?
I'm doing great. Thank you for listing me among the more interesting voices in the hotel space.
Very good. Well, it's actually true. I follow you on LinkedIn and really enjoy the posts that you make. And I noticed that you've got a bit of a theme going on. I think you might be using a bit of AI and in your visuals, just in your visuals, not in your in your actual comment. But I'm loving the consistency of your visual representation of your posts, because every time I'm scrolling through, I know to stop when I see one of those. So it's working.
Okay, that's the intent. Although I saw for the first time the other day that LinkedIn tagged it as AI generated content and referenced that I had used ChatGPT to create it. So I think that's really interesting that that's where that's heading.
That is, I have not seen that. I've not seen that happen ever anywhere. I'm going to go and have a look for that, because that could be a bad thing, right? Because actually what you say is your authentic voice, and the stuff that you're saying is very interesting because you know it very well. And so you don't really want it tagged as
Oh,
AI.
I meant the
The
imagery
image.
itself.
Yeah. But
No, I write, for better or worse, the LinkedIn posts. I was an English major undergrad, and I get to
there you
put it
go.
to use every once in a while. And so maybe that makes me kind of one of the bizarrely suited people to kind of attack this problem, which is both mathy and, English language
Very
in
good for
general.
the just the general user of LinkedIn. They'll know that it's only the image that it's talking about and not your written content when they see that
That's right.
message. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I hope
That
so.
that's good.
Yeah,
That's good. I mean,
hopefully.
I did the same thing a while back, and then now I'm too lazy to even do that. So a lot of my posts go out with just words. But look, that's enough about me, and let's get on to you.
Sure.
As I said, you are not only building for the hotel industry, but you are from the hotel industry. So you are building to solve your own problem. Let's hear a little bit about kind of your background and how you've got to this place of where you are building Kismet.
Yeah. So I did not start out trying to be a hotel tech founder. Nobody goes into the hotel industry and builds or buys a hotel because they want to choose what technology platform to sell their hotel rooms on. And I was like everybody else who really loved design, really loved hospitality, grew up loving the business. I came to it from a real estate background, and I very quickly found out, after spending a lot of time agonizing over every detail of the first hotel I built, and I mean the way that the tiles met in the corners of the shower surround, and exactly what level to set the music to and the lights to in the lobby. I quickly found out that almost all of that was secondary to how hotels were distributed. And this kicked off a fascination for me that led me here. I spent a lot of time figuring out how to hopefully help the hotels that I love most, which are these cool independent hotels with a point of view, reach the guests who will love them most. And it's only been in the last few years that I figured out that there's an opportunity to build the technology that can enable that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, break it down for us, for those who don't understand the hotel industry that well. And I would put my hand up and say I was one of those, and I'm learning every day. But there is a distinction between the hotel developer, the hotel manager, the hotel owner. There's kind of all these different levels of what you can be in a hotel, and I can still to this day never really work out like how each piece in those
Yeah.
in that model make their money, and is it all on revenue, or like what's actually going on there? Which part are you? Are you vertically integrated? You're all of them, or how does that work?
No, I wish. And I think in some ways that simplifies the whole strategic decisions that a hotel owner faces and really makes just delivering hospitality the goal. For better or for worse, in the United States, the vast majority of hotels actually have three parties at the table. And that's the hotel management company, the owner or asset manager sitting in for the owner, and the franchise. So they're buying a franchise. 70% of hotels are franchised in the US. And so that's the big franchise companies like Marriott and Hilton. There's a variety of different ways to own and operate hotels in every country in the world. And it's always different, is what I'm learning. But in the US, we have three parties in control who are all compensated on very different parts of the profit and loss statement. And that's a big part of the challenge with finding and speccing the right tech to make sure that your hotel performs as well as possible.
I bet. I bet. Now, I used to run a tours and activities business called Urban
Awesome.
Adventures, and we were in 160 cities around the world, and we're like,
Amazing.
that's a decent size of geographical spread, and whatever. And a couple of times in running that business, I got very excited. One was when we had a very fruitful conversation with a company called Marriott, and the other one was a very
Ah,
fruitful conversation with a company called Hilton. And both those companies were looking to, connect with their local community and do, local travel. And the company I ran, that was our whole entire core. We ran very highly localized experiences. And what we proposed to those hotels was we could run these out of your lobby. We could take,
yes.
just a group of your customers at a certain time of day and take them on a neighborhood walk, and even drop them back at your F&B facility for dinner or whatever it happens to be, if that was kind of a big concern to you, and broke down all their problems. And the head office, they're like, oh, we love this. This is amazing. This is
Yeah.
gonna be fantastic. And how many of those do you reckon we got away? Zero. Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what the guest wants, right? But what you ran into is the challenge of creating brand at this very high level and then trying to parachute it into a bunch of locations. But individuality and uniqueness of experience is what consumers outside of travel and in travel have learned to expect as more and more information becomes public for the last 30 years. So the fact that these big brand companies even exist today is kind of surprising to me. There's been an embrace of the artisanal, there's been an embrace of the local, and the hotel industry is really the last place where brand is still a signifier. And, way back in the day, you'd go to a new city, you really wanted that imprint of what a brand was in order to inform your purchase. But in theory, you could, if you had infinite time, do infinite research and find the perfect hotel for you today with just information available on the internet. So the reason that these franchise companies still exist, it's actually somewhat surprising. And you really have to get into the nuts and bolts and the nuances of how distribution works in the hotel travel landscape to understand why they still even exist.
Yeah, it's interesting around that kind of boutique and independent feel or vibe of hotels, because those big franchise companies are forever launching new indie brands and
Yeah.
what have you. And we've seen it happen with wine or craft beer. You go down the craft beer or to your supermarket style outlet here in Australia anyway, and you'll see like 600 different types of craft beer, all with a beautiful label and great design and whatever. But like 90% of them are just owned by the supermarket,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's actually, 5 actual craft breweries on their shelves, and they're just kind of pretending, the kind of faux craft beer. Is that kind of what's happening with the indie hotel scene with the franchises? I better not get you in trouble with the franchisees, but
Yeah, no, no, don't get me in trouble. I actually sit on some advisory boards at Marriott to this day and work specifically on their soft branded, the indie and feel properties at Tribute Portfolio and Autograph Collection. So, I love Marriott dearly, and we actually own a Marriott hotel. I think that's a really good analogy to what's happening. I mean, AB InBev owns, the vast majority of breweries and beers and labels. I think that there's an issue in scale of production and cost in maybe brewing beer that doesn't necessarily translate the exact same way. But when you see those types of industry structures, it usually has to do with the distribution question. And I think that's true, at least in the US, in liquor distribution, and it's certainly true in hotel distribution. These franchise companies are a distribution model, and they're appropriate for certain types of hotels in certain locations. And then there are other types of hotels in other locations that can absolutely run an independent strategy and do a great job with it. And it's really about choosing what's right for your property.
yeah, for sure. And these are the types of posts that I see you posting on LinkedIn. You're passionate about this kind of
Yeah.
D2C indie
Yeah.
hotel vibe. And you said a moment ago that, if you had infinite time, then you could,
Yeah.
then as a consumer, you could go down and find the exact right hotel for you based on, its attributes and exactly what it is that you want to get out of it. And AI gives us that time, right? Because it can go and do that work for us while we go and do the shopping, and when we come back, hopefully it's found the right one for us. So connect those dots up for us and tell us kind of where you think we're going in terms of AI and this distribution piece around hotels, and where it might fit in, and what you're doing about it.
So I remember actually sitting down at a coffee shop in the summer of 2023 with my dad and explaining to him why I wanted to go found Kismet. And I explained to him that in the future, we will all have AI assistants who know us well and know our preferences on an extremely granular level. They'll know our friends, they'll know how we like to travel and where we like to travel. And they'll go out and they will plan the perfect itinerary for us. And the whole world of distribution in hotels will be changed by it. And so I didn't know exactly who was going to own or who was going to provide this consumer travel planning AI. I think that's becoming more evident 2 years later. And I didn't know exactly what the user interface or the channels that it might be sold in would look like, but I wanted to build in that direction. And only in the last 6 months, and even more recently than that, have we seen exactly what that world is going to look like with some standardizations of model context protocol. So, a standard for how AIs might talk to each other, the introduction of NL Web as a natural language parallel internet, to what we have learned to view through a browser window. And it's an extremely exciting time because everything that we thought might be possible is suddenly happening very quickly. And it really governs what we're doing at Kismet.
Yeah, for sure. So you reckon that there's already a couple of winners in terms of who's going to be driving the traffic, let's say, for want of a better word. And are you talking about OpenAI and Google when you say that, or like other ones that you've got in mind that, or is it have I
Yeah.
misinterpreted that?
So I think large horizontal players like OpenAI and their ChatGPT product and Google, both through AI mode and its AI overviews, will certainly be major players top of funnel. But I do think that there's a place for specifically trained or specialized AI that works on a consumer's behalf to plan really bespoke trips. And I think that there are AIs that will work very closely with travel advisors, travel agents to really provide next level experiences on the consumer side. And I think that's actually an extremely exciting thing for hotels who thought once upon a time that what they were going to have to do was put a chatbot on their website in order to serve AI. But in reality, what they have to do is make their information readable by consumer side AI, and they have to make it available to consumer side AI.
Yeah, totally agree. In your visualization of the future, which we are rapidly approaching,
Yeah.
I think, is it one agent kind of on your phone, and then that agent has its own app store, which is full of other agents, or it spins these other agents up on the fly to go and do hotel specific searching, or we have a hotel specific searching AI and we go into the app store and choose that one to go and do that work for us. How do you got any thoughts on how that might play out, or
Yeah, only speculation. It's a little bit above my pay grade,
Mm.
and we want to design in a way that our hotel partners can be agnostic about this very question. But I suspect that depending on the purpose, you will tap a very different AI. So it could be that you use Microsoft when you're planning work travel, and it's natively built into your Outlook. And for certain types of social travel, you might use something built into Snapchat or Instagram. My co-founder comes from Snap, and that's a big part of, what we have been thinking about. It's one of the few places where natural language is already embraced in this collaborative fashion. And like, wouldn't it be cool if you could, book a hotel room by dropping into someone's DMs, a hotel's DMs? Could you work as a group to plan a trip in like a completely different way because AI can glue together the conversations that are happening? So I have some ideas, like I have some hopes for like the types of cool travel apps that might emerge. But at the end of the day, I think that hotels and travel suppliers need to be ready for whatever that guest side modality emerges, and the steps that they need to take look very similar regardless of what the consumer application looks like.
Yeah, and that's where you start. That's what you were talking about, as you said earlier, around MCP and agent to agent conversation, because those
Yeah.
protocols already are starting to be, set in concrete as to this is the way that the future internet, the future web, or whatever it is we want to call it, will talk to each other. And in your opinion, that's the most important thing, is to understand what those protocols are, how you connect to them, and what you tell them, what information you provide to them, because that's going to be what you are discovered or not discovered upon in the future.
Yeah, I think that what you tell them and what information you choose to tell them is actually far more important than understanding them. My LinkedIn presence has been a little bit of, hotel tech guy talking to other travel tech guys. The average hotelier is too busy with a million other things and actually operating a hotel to worry about what it means to spin up an MCP server. And they couldn't do it if they wanted to. It's not like they have a Google Cloud account or, know anything about vector embeddings. That said, we take care of that awful drudgery. And we make it really easy. And the idea is that we can take care of these fairly technical but solvable problems so that hotels can focus on speaking with one voice, establishing their voice, and doing it in the places they're already doing it. So that means our system needs to be aware of what you're doing on social media. Our system needs to understand what the world of online reviews looks like. And our system needs to really understand rates, pricing, non-public rates that you might want to offer to an individual guest, because that's the very essence of why someone will, work with your AI as a hotel, why a consumer side AI will choose to work with it, because at the end of the day, there really can only be one spot that this consumer side AI is working with. And I've heard you actually, Tony, talk about on past podcasts that, you say that the incumbents have a huge advantage, and I agree with you. They have both a technology advantage and a legacy of trying to take a lot of data and making it quickly available, historically to Google for SEO. But hotels have several advantages that intermediaries don't have, and they can choose what to surface where. And if we can give them the control, they can give consumers a really good reason to book with them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe what you're alluding to there potentially is kind of stuff like around price parity rules with OTAs, for example, where your publicly displayed price can't be, less than what the OTA can display. But if it is a agent that's coming and inquiring, hey, my human would like to stay here, like what have you got for me? Then you can work out what might be the best price for that person or the most likely price that person will buy it. And sometimes that might be less than the publicly displayed price, and you're not telling anyone publicly what it is that you're offering this person. But sometimes it also might be more than the publicly displayed price,
Sure.
because you might clue that this person, likes the corner room with the
Yeah.
dual aspect, the big and the spa in the corner, and therefore, they're probably more inclined to pay a little bit more. And that's kind of the exciting proposition here for the hotel owner, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying, that you will want to vary your price based on who you're talking to. We think that price is a really blunt instrument. It's an important one, but it's not the only thing that you have to do. And in order to vary your price, as you pointed out, you do have to take certain steps to establish identity of who you're interacting with. So you'll need software that can do that as part of this process. But even more than that, I think the opportunity is in understanding that guest, and not in like a creepy tracking way. It's actually an awesome opportunity for the guest to be able to explain to the hotel exactly why they're traveling. And good hotel side AI systems will surface the right information to help that guest make an informed decision. And that can be social media content, that can be reviews from families, both good and bad, where you provide a link to the TripAdvisor review so that you have some social proof. But we think these are the types of things that hotels are going to have to do on demand to be the preferred booking point for these consumer side AIs.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. So I'm a hoteler, and I've been doing things web to, for 20 years or whatever, and we build up our decent website, and we've got a social media manager on that, they're posting every day, and we think we've got a brand voice, and we think we're doing things okay, and business is okay. What do I actually need to change? Like, what do I need to do, or do I not need to do anything to be able to surface this information in the new world? Like what steps should I be taking? Given you said like I'm busy doing the things that I do every day, but these are part of the things that have become part of my life. Is like,
Yeah.
is the website up to date? Where are our gaps? Are we telling the story of our property well? Are we telling the story of what's around our property well? Like, these are not new things, right? So what should I be doing to connect this all together?
The hardest part of our job at Kismet is figuring out how to make that almost invisible to the hotel owner or social media manager or salesperson who's doing this stuff every day and creating PDFs with, floor plans for event space that they might be sending to guests. The answer is that you need a system that collects this information and puts it in one place that can be queried, which is, just asked, that an AI can ask and receive the type of information that it's able to read. What we're kind of doing at the end of the day at Kismet, and we're not the only ones who are going to figure out how to do this, and you may choose to try to do it yourself as a hotelier, is we're just making it easy for AI to interact with the things you're doing already and making you be able to deliver that information at the official endpoint. And so that's in technical terms, an ETL pipeline and some vector embeddings and an MCP server. But what it really means is if an AI agent says, you know, what venues do you have that work for a 30-person event? I don't want it to feel too big. I want to, be able to serve this type of things. Can you provide me a menu? That your AI is able to instantly pull that information from a store and return it to the consumer side AI, who will then present it to the consumer.
Yeah, yeah, and I totally get that, and it's fantastic that there's not like a massive shift in behavior that's required from the hotel staff into what they're doing. If they're already doing a good job, it's actually just about surfacing that information. But in your opinion, why would an AI that's out serving their human pick the hotel website or server to gather this information versus a place where it could get information on 20 different properties all at once, which is the incumbent, the OTA? Like, well, why would they go to this specific space and try and find information there rather than go somewhere where they can kill two birds with one stone, for example?
So you'll want to engage in a service that can serve multiple hotels at once. So don't try to do it on your own. But the emerging agentic standard is to look to an official source of information as long as it's able to give the information that the agent needs. So that means that you need to be at least as good as an OTA is at answering price, images, feature list, which most hotel websites today are not as good as an OTA is. In fact, a lot of them link out to a third-party site for pricing information, and you need to fix that. But the reason that they'll pick you in the long run is because you can give the consumer a differentiated experience. And so, yes, that's price and being able to say you're a member of a closed user group and I can give you a private rate that undercuts what's available on the OTA. But it's not, like a 20, 30% discount. It's maybe a small discount. And in the long run, if you're doing your job really well, you might be able to do some sort of packaging that's extremely relevant to the guest because you can provide those options in a way that the consumer side AI can build a really cool itinerary, can build its own package subject to the rules that you set in your system. And so you'll want to have things that you're not sending up to these big aggregators that you keep for yourself that are really cool, and that's gonna reward the types of hotels that I love, like the ones that are doing concerts and will comp someone a ticket or throwing a barbecue or have this art installation. We were just talking to a client this afternoon about this really cool art fair they're doing where they're turning all the rooms into actual galleries across the property. And the guests that weekend are staying in rooms that are part of the gallery and that will end up on the gallery tour at certain hours. So it's like, when you're doing things like that, it's really hard for an OTA to structure that into the types of systems that they're like sending all this information out to. They're not going to be able to surface that for guests. So the best hotels are the ones that are doing something specialized and can offer guests something different at their official endpoints.
Yeah, I really love that as an example. Like that is, I think that should clear it up for everybody around what the opportunity is here. The OTA has a number of boxes it needs to fill out to be able to deliver information back, and it actually can't do bespoke stuff very well because it sits
No.
outside the boxes that it's already built. So, that is your opportunity. That is your opportunity. Have things that don't go to those boxes that are available for, just your guests, those that come to you and can really add value to that consumer and their stay based on what you're able to build natively within your system. Now, you kind of run a dual life, right? So you've got Kismet where you're building hotel tech,
Yeah.
but you are still sitting in like the rev meetings of your hotels, etc. How are your staff on the hotel side or the people that you work with, how are they understanding what it is that you're building on the other side? Is it clear to them what you're doing, or those conversations happen in parallel? They don't actually cross over.
It's the best training that I can get on a weekly basis on how to be a whole lot less wonky when I talk about what the opportunity is, because honestly, I'm so deep in the technology and the weeds on a daily basis that I sometimes forget, how to talk like a hotelier or a human for that matter. You know, it's really helpful to be close to them and hear about the specific problems they're trying to solve, where there's gaps in, for instance, attribution, right? We have a really great social media presence. We know if somebody clicks something and ends up on our hotel's website, we'd really like to know if it turned into an actual conversion or or even better, like a whole wedding, so that we could really invest in being in front of those guests. And I hear those problems on a daily, weekly basis, and it's constantly giving me ideas on and the most dangerous thing in the world is I come out of one of those meetings and I walk over to the rest of the Kismet team and I'm like, we got to build this now. I just heard this problem. So they're living in constant fear that I'm going to come up with some new report or some new feature set based on what I'm talking about with the hotel operating team on on a regular basis. So it's really helpful, and it's nice to be able to wear both hats while we're doing this.
Yeah, it's a huge advantage, obviously, when you're building any type of new startup. The founder fit to the problem is crucial to whether that thing is probably going to be successful or not. And you found yourself in a really great position that you're kind of building for yourself, but you can see the advantage of it for everybody else. Talk to us a little bit now about the maturity of the Kismet product. Like, where are you at? Are you in a beta stage and helping out other hotels? Are you still just working with your own properties to get it right first? Or, what's the pathway here, and how can other people get involved?
We would love them to get involved. We are in a beta stage with several design partners who have been invaluable throughout the process, giving feedback, specific features, but also saying, this is really cool. This is a problem that I have. Help me solve it. We can't solve all of them, but it's really a great way to get guidance on what we should be working on. And the best meetings are when you go in and you demo a new feature and they go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was possible. And you just watch their eyes light up and they're like, when can we deploy that? And that's what you're always going for. So we're in a state right now where we're really focused on the awareness issue. Hotel or consumer side AI does not expect to book hotel rooms yet. I was at the Skift Data and AI conference in New York last week. Seth Borko got on stage and said he thinks booking's 3 years away. I would say it's 6 months away.
Hmm.
But we all agree that the LLM search or the AI search, so LLM SEO or AEO or AIO or GEO or whatever you want to call it, that's a real problem. With our implementation, and we have a WordPress plugin, we can do a custom build if your site demands it. We can see right now that these AI bots are visiting and hitting the endpoints like Ask and MCP tool calling endpoints on a more than daily basis. And they're not doing it because they expect to take action from these endpoints yet. They're mapping the internet. They're getting ready for the next model releases. They're training. And so the information that it gets from your hotel websites will go into its training data, and they're getting ready for when they are going to book at those endpoints. So we think the time to act is now. It's a little bit self-serving, but I really do believe that you want to be discoverable and you want to show up. And we're seeing some hotels where more than 10% of their traffic is coming from AI search bots. So it's a really exciting time. If you want to try to tackle that problem, we're here to try to help with it. But regardless, we're really excited about talking, to people who are just thinking about anything related to, AI distribution. So just, you can give us a holler regardless of whether you want to work with us at Kismet. We just geek out.
Very, very good, very good. And I'm happy that we are having this conversation so that we can geek out on it as well. So that's great. And it's really good that you've kind of made that distinction there, because agents booking are not ubiquitous at this point. It's,
No.
There's a few demos floating around, but that's the point that we're at. But I'm kind of with you. I think it's a very quick move, and particularly if Google operationalizes, what it's shown us at I/O, and why wouldn't they, pretty quickly, and we see Perplexity messing around with hotels, as a focus point. So like it's going to come pretty fast, but the point around being discoverable now is the stepping stone to actually being booked later on. So like you need to prove that the AI can find you, that it can get the info that it wants and can deliver it back, even if it's just in a verbal form now. And that's the stepping stone to getting there. Look, we've only got a couple of minutes left. If people want to connect with you about Kismet, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I've heard that I shouldn't do this. You warned a past guest, but you're more than welcome to email me. Jason@makekismet.com. Flood my inbox. I have founder energy. I'll respond. I love it. And, that's the best way to start a conversation. You're more than welcome to give me a follow on LinkedIn. And then if you're a developer, we'd ask that you hit ksmt.app, and you can sign up and get on the waitlist for access to our MCP layer and our GitHub repo. And if you're a potential hotel partner, hit us up at makekismet.com. There's a number of waitlists or signups that you can go. And depending on when the podcast is released, we may have our WordPress plugin up for self-service. So if you're a WordPress user, we're just finishing up beta testing on that now, and we're going to release it for self-serve, which is our first self-service product. So it's a big thing for us.
Brilliant. That's fantastic for everyone to know, and I recommend them take advantage of it. Just get the knowledge, people. Like, if you even aren't ready to jump yet, let's just get the knowledge and understand where the world's going so that you can skate to the puck, as they say. Jason, thank you so much for taking some time to have a chat with us today and inform us about what's going on and what the future looks like for hotels. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Tony, this was a lot of fun.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening along. If you've enjoyed the show, please remember to hit follow or subscribe on the service that you're listening to. That will help me and help others find this podcast in the future. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you all for the next one.
AI, in the travel, here we go. Got that AI on the low, taking flights to and fro, booking trips in a snap with a simple chat.